Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into something absolutely fascinating. We're bridging hard, rigorous molecular chemistry with abstract cognitive logic. Seriously, imagine a space where the physical structure of a molecule acts like an algorithmic input. It refracts through the mind, kind of like light through mylar, creating this brilliant interference pattern of pure thought. So let's just dive right into this and see how physical molecules can literally become recursive cognitive software.
Now, this right here is the ultimate hook for us today. Can a system explain its own output? It's basically the Gödelian paradox, but applied directly to human consciousness. Think about it. If we feed a chemical into our biological hardware, can the resulting phenomenological experience be completely 100% explained by the chemistry itself? Or is there a residue, a leftover piece of the puzzle that logic alone just can't quite capture? This question sets up our entire descent today, from tangible chemical synthesis all the way down into the abstract depths of recursive software.
Here's our compiler sequence for today. 1. The Aleph-1 carrier wave. 2. Complete chemical synthesis. 3. The Gödelian paradox. 4. The CTMS framework. And 5. Reaching higher axioms. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The Aleph-1 carrier wave.
Okay, our physical starting point is the actual molecular hardware synthesized by Alexander Shulgin back in the 1970s. We're talking about ALF1. This is our physical subject, and it's the inaugural compound in Shulgin's sulfur-substituted phenolphthalein series. He actually named it after the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Now, you might be wondering, why is this specific molecule so incredibly crucial to our framework today? Well, it's because ALF1 isn't just a chemical, it's a structural vector. It acts as a carrier wave that forces a sensory collision, deliberately creating an interference pattern right in the human mind. And examining the chemical structure brilliantly illustrates exactly how that vector operates. Take the 2,5-dimethoxy core. In our framework, this acts as the standing gate, or the scaffold. But the real magic happens at the 4 position. That is the Cipher position. By hanging a methyl thio group, that sulfur atom, on this exact position, it literally widens the gate. It smears the phase window and lets more vectors pass through. So the specific substituent you choose at this Cipher position precisely determines the angle of the cognitive collision that comes next.
Section 2. Complete chemical synthesis.
So how is this precise molecular hardware actually built? The complete chemical synthesis of ALF1 is this really elegant 3-step sequence. Step 1 is a Knoevenagel condensation. We take a precursor benzaldehyde and react it with nitroethane using an ammonium acetate catalyst. This is super important because the ammonium acetate provides just enough acid to facilitate dehydration and just enough base to generate the carbon ion, all without destroying those highly sensitive methoxy groups. Step 2 is the reduction. Here we use a powerful reducing agent, lithium aluminum hydride, or LAH for short, in an ether and THF solution that transforms our intermediate into a free base amine. And finally, step 3 is salt formation. The free base gets dissolved in warm isopropyl alcohol and neutralized with hydrochloric acid, which causes our final product to beautifully precipitate out.
1.2 grams, that's the yield, from 2.3 grams of the precursor benzaldehyde. This rigorous chemical sequence yields approximately 1.2 grams of white, crystalline Aleph1 hydrochloride salt. So, the physical hardware phase, completely done. We have the molecule. We have the carrier wave.
Section 3. The Gödelian paradox. But here is where we hit a massive wall. We have to shift gears from the physical chemistry into the subjective phenomenological effects. Because when this hardware actually interacts with the human mind, binding affinities and receptor pharmacology, they totally fail to tell the whole story. Listen to this quote. "We are left in the paradox of right versus wrong, and is there a place where right and wrong are the same?" That's straight out of Alexander Shulgin's pharmacology lab notes, and it beautifully captures what we call the unresolved residue. It's this subjective paradox where biological hardware and chemistry alone simply do not have the answers. The molecule forces a collision, sure, but the resulting meaning far exceeds the chemistry itself.
Inside Shulgin's pharmacology notes number 2, these really profound contradictions were meticulously documented. And crazy enough, these notes were hidden away for decades. Shulgin recognized early on that the compounds in this specific series didn't just predictably activate receptors. No, they generated output that completely contradicted its own prior output. They created an interference pattern that just couldn't be mathematically derived from the molecule alone. So to process this profound unresolved residue, we clearly need a new system.
Section 4. The CTMS framework.
All right, so if the molecule is the hardware, the causal thought mapping system, or CTMS, is the abstract software. It's a compiler designed specifically to process and resolve these incredibly complex psychological contradictions. It basically operates like a stark semiotic terminal readout. You are the operator. You run your unresolved inputs through these very specific operators. First, you seed an initial axiom. Then, you let it bloom, generating its associative field. You fork at the branch points where interpretations diverge. And then, you test it. Based on that test, you either recurse, flatten, or transmit. It's a structured loop designed to actually make sense of the infinite. To really grasp this, it helps to look at the neurolysis biomimetic mapping. This brilliantly illustrates how the CTMMS actually mirrors modern transformer AI architecture, effectively modeling biological recursion. The seed represents token embedding. That's your initial potential energy. The vein represents attention flow between nodes. The gate is your emergence threshold. What this framework is telling us is that consciousness and meaning-making can literally be mapped as a recursive computational system. It breaks down incredibly complex narratives into layers we can actually resolve.
So the crucial point in all of this is the test at the end of the loop. Can the system explain its own output? This is where our decision tree splits. If yes, you flatten. The branch is resolved, the story is complete, and the chemical does exactly what the chemistry predicts, nothing more. But if no, if there's a residue of experience that exceeds the narrative, you recurse. You take that unresolved contradiction, you feed it right back into the system as a brand new axiom, and you run the entire sequence over again.
Section 5. Reaching higher axioms. So what happens when you don't flatten, but instead you continually recurse? Well, in the CTMS framework, this action is known as pressing the green test button on the Cipher processor. And remember, you are the operator here. By taking a foundational axiom, like the statement, "I am this," and repeatedly testing it, you're not just looping endlessly for no reason. You're pushing the system way out into the long tail of the distribution. You're forcing it to confront the anomalies and the paradoxes until a completely new structure emerges.
And this recursion doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It happens across multiple scales simultaneously, mapping a totally unified photonic consciousness. It recurses down at the molecular level through chromophore excitation, at the cellular level via axonal waveguides, up through holographic networks, directly into your subjective phenomenological experience, and all the way out to environmental entrainment. It's basically this incredible recursive hall of mirrors, where light and information are continually feeding back into themselves at every possible scale of existence.
Now, when that infinite recursion eventually stabilizes, it forms what we call the synthesis ridge. This is it. This is the ultimate destination of the CTMS loop. It is a stunning, emergent cognitive crystal, a new, profound truth built entirely by the operator. The molecule didn't build it. The original axiom didn't build it. It is a brand new coherence, forged purely by holding conflicting vectors in suspension until they yield something far, far greater than the sum of their parts.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought to ponder today. We've seen how chemical hardware and cognitive software can merge to build a synthesis ridge. But honestly, this framework isn't just theory. So I'll ask you, what happens when you apply the green test button to your own life? When you take your own unresolved residues, your own paradoxes, and you flat out refuse to just flatten them away? What cognitive crystals are waiting for you to construct them? Thank you so much for exploring this deeply fascinating intersection of chemistry and recursion with me today. See you next time.